President Donald Trump signing an executive order directing the US government to review its policy on the H-1B visa.
Donald J. Trump has said that he would not allow Americans to be replaced.
Sources are saying they're trying to see how best can the damage be contained.
Indian professionals who are looking forward to studying and working in the United States.
Voices have been polled rhetoric for Donald Trump. Another visa is part of a larger immigration impact. Nearly 60,000 of 85,000 H-1B visas.
That happen anymore, folks.
Allows Indians and other foreigners to temporarily work in the US.
You and I have been seeing this everywhere on social network, on media, on TVs, as soon as Donald Trump became the president. But what is really the truth? Let me break it down for you. US is and has been the top destinations for international students who are coming from countries like India, China, Mexico, and South Korea. It attracts the highest number of international students of any country in the world. The reason, you ask? Well, great job market, excellent research, and excellent universities, along with cultural diversity and people. In fact, this is the current number of international students in the United States right now. Among the top 3 countries where students come from is China, India, and South Korea. Now, the way things are in the age we live in, media will always get your attention with catchy titles and really works on the principle of word of mouth. You'll always hear from a friend saying that, hey, I heard H-1B is being revoked by Trump. He's cancelling STEM extension. Trump is doing that. Trump is doing this. But is it really true? Your uncle or your parent will come with a small amount of news and with really apprehensive knowledge, but nobody really seems to know what's the bigger picture and what's actually going on. Let me actually explain to you the whole process and what kind of visas are there, because there's so much more than F1 only. CPT stands for Curricular Practical Training. Under CPT, you'll get 12 months of part-time work or internship. People usually use it for your internship purposes. So this is very easy. You go to your department at the university and CPT paperwork is the easiest you can get. Now OPT. OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. OPT is given to the students as a 12 months period where they can work full-time in any company which they want. For students who have received degrees in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering and math, they get a STEM extension of 2 years. If you add up all of that, you get 12 months of CPT period, 1 year of OPT and 2 years of STEM extension. That adds up to 3 years after your 2 years are done. The only people who do not get their STEM extension or OPT are the ones who miss some kind of deadlines or did not do their paperwork properly. Now, the reason why these 3 years are so important is because these 3 years will allow you to apply for H-1B. This is the main work visa which will allow you to work at any company for 3 to 9 years. There's a lot of details and nuances of the whole process. Rishabh, who's a graduate of Brown University and has been living in the US for 5 years, has talked to a couple of professors and a lot of immigration experts. And I'll let him take away and he can explain the whole H-1B scenario to the crux.
So the first thing, and one of the unique things about the H-1B is when you compare it to other visas, like the B1 or the B2, which is the tourist or the business visa, or even the F1 visa, is that the application is actually not put in by you. The application is put in by your employer, and what that also entails is that they have to take care of a bunch of paperwork. In fact, all of the paperwork is done by them. They will be paying all the fees associated with this process, which ranges from about $4,000 to $10,000, give or take. And this is hence the term sponsoring the H-1B visa, because they literally actually have to sponsor you. So the origin of the term really comes from the fact that there is a cap, or there's a limit to the number of H-1B that's given out every year, that's set by the Congress. It's pretty much, the minimum number is 85,000, and it doesn't really vary too much. It remains around 85,000. Now within that 85,000, there are 2 quotas. One is the general quota, which is about 60,000 slots, and the other is the advanced degree quota, which has 20,000 slots. So the general quota is for people with a bachelor's degree from the US or bachelor's degree from outside, or anyone who's applying, say, from an outsourcing company. So that's where most people go. Advanced degree quota is 20,000 slots, and that's especially reserved for people who have a master's degree from the US. So if you're coming to the US to do a master's, you have a very unique advantage, which is this. So they actually feed all of the applicants into a computer system, and the computer selects at random 85,000 cases roughly, and then that's forwarded for processing. Now there's an important distinction here. If you actually have a master's degree, what happens is that you first are placed into that pool of 20,000 slots, and you go through that lottery process, and if you get it, great, your case is processed for forwarding. But if you don't get it, then you are put into the general quota again, and so you get another go. So effectively, if you have a master's degree, per lottery you get 2 shots. So that significantly increases your chances of getting a visa. Also because the total number of applications that go for the advanced degree quota naturally is much less compared to the total number of applications that go in for the general quota. As you know, if you're a master's applicant, you might be thinking, well, everyone around me is getting a master's degree, but it's actually still not that common. Like, you are still a respected rare breed of people, and you are quite highly qualified. Master's or an advanced degree is recognized as a de facto symbol of your qualification for for being a high-skilled immigrant or a specialty occupation. So if you have a master's degree, you actually have a much higher likelihood of getting the H-1B visa, just in terms of the specialty occupation and high-skilled requirements, compared to a person who doesn't have a master's degree, assuming all things are equal. There are actually 2 types of H-1B visas. One of them is the capped H-1B visa that we talked about, or that I just mentioned, which essentially, as I said, has a specific limit to the number of visas that can be given out in a calendar year. And the other, which is actually not known to a lot of people, and surprisingly international students, is something called the Cap-exempt H-1B visa. The word cap-exempt in this phrase really means that there are actually no limits to the number of this type of H-1B visas that can be given out. Now, this is a special category of visa that's actually reserved for students or immigrants or anyone who actually wants to work at a non-profit, a university, a hospital, or a research lab. And effectively, the process with these is all you need is just a job offer, an offer of employment, and you immediately get that H-1B. You don't have to go through the through the lottery process. Sorry. This is a great way that to get the H-1B visa. It's an option that's actually not considered by that many people, surprisingly, because most people don't know about it. And there are plenty of opportunities in this space. A lot of people actually think that, oh, maybe, or when I mentioned this, maybe you thought, okay, well, do nonprofits have less opportunities, or do universities have less opportunities in terms of, say, whatever it is that you care about? It could be salary, it could be sort of work conditions, healthcare, all of that stuff. No, that's completely false. There are a fantastic number of nonprofits that do a great amount of work, and they require people from all sorts of disciplines. The same is true for universities. Universities have finance departments, they have IT departments, they have a variety of introductory teaching positions. The same is true for research labs, especially for CS. There are so many research labs that are coming up that are non-profits and effectively will just give you an H-1B on the spot as soon as you get the job offer. That's the H-4 EAD work authorization. So effectively, what the H-4 EAD work authorization is that if you have a spouse, a wife or a husband that you are coming to the US with, usually in a different world, or earlier at least, they would have to apply for a separate H-1B to actually seek employment at any company or anywhere that they want to work. However, what the H-4 work authorization affords them is that they can actually get permission to work at any company or anywhere that they want to based on your H-1B visa. So they don't have to file for a separate process, they don't have to go through the lottery, they don't have to go through all of that pain that you probably went through when and if you got the H-1B visa. So now the Trump administration has used the term chain migration to describe this, which is effectively what they're planning on doing, and this is almost a certainty at this point. I think it's a matter of when, not if, that they are going to repeal the H4 work authorization. So if you're a person who's coming to the US with your spouse, this is something you should be thinking about. I don't know, it's hard to comment on, how much that factors into your ultimate decision, but it is, this which earlier made it very, very easy for your spouse to work at a company. Now it's going to be difficult because they have to look at other options like maybe applying for H1B as well or some other areas. So that's one concrete change that's fact. It's still not been implemented, but it's pretty much a matter of when, not if. The second change that's happened is actually directly related to the H1B visa. However, if you're an international student watching this who's coming to the US, then this is not a cause for concern for you. The second change that's happened is actually the USCIS and the Department of Homeland Security have made the regulations as they pertain to filing documentation for off-site workers, which effectively means companies like Infosys or Wipro, or companies that would place employees, software consultancy companies, for example, are examples, who would send their employees to the US to work on particular client sites or particular client projects. They have introduced a whole bunch of requirements for documentation that these companies now have to file. So earlier, a lot of it was, somewhat loose. So you would sort of have like a letter with a description of what the role is. You'd have, again, it could be pretty broad, and as long as it conveyed the idea of what you're doing and all of that stuff, there weren't that many stringent requirements. You could, for example, throw in your schedule of, okay, this is where I'm going to be on this site for this month, and this is where I'm going to be working, so on and so forth. But none of that was required. Now what they've done is they've made all of that extra documentation as it pertains to what's going to be your schedule when you're in the US. What site or what city are you going to be working in and for how many months? And then when are you going to change cities? Who's going to be directly supervising you? Is this a specialty occupation? Is this truly a specialty occupation? Again, remember, we talked about specialty occupation that's a really central idea of what the Trump administration is trying to push in terms of how they want to amend the H1B. And so they've made the test for what a specialty occupation is for people who are coming from outside of the US without any degrees much more stringent. However, if you're an international student, you do not have to worry about this at all. This is not aimed at you. This is not relevant for you. So nothing to worry about in this case. Remember that there are certain fundamental things that are protected by the Constitution, that are protected by just the nature of how law is made in the US, which is not something most people know. So let's talk about that. The answer again is quite simple. The one thing that cannot happen is that the H1B cannot be repealed. And the H1B extensions cannot be repealed. This is because to repeal the H1B, instead of actually just sort of going through their own channels and the president essentially writing some kind of executive order, that's not going to work. The current administration or the president by himself does not have the authority to repeal the H1B. What needs to happen for that kind of thing, they actually need to go through the two legislative houses, the United States Senate and the Congress. And that's a very, very, very long, arduous process where they'll face a lot of huge amounts of opposition. And there's very, very low chances of an actual bill passing. Most bills, I think the percentage is really, really high. Most bills that are actually proposed don't become law. About only 25% of them even make it to the debate stage, which is still not even close to passing one house. Right? So it's very important to remember that just because a bill has been proposed, and this has been milked by the media quite a lot, it does not mean that it has any chance whatsoever of actually being passed. So again, just to recap, the H1B as a visa type cannot be repealed because and even if they try to do something, the Supreme Court can intervene because there's enough of a legal case that can be made to prevent such kind of action. We've seen that this has happened with something. So for example, with the alleged Muslim or the travel ban, the Supreme Court intervened and implemented a stay on that. We've also seen how major bills have failed. The Republican effort to actually repeal Obamacare, that also failed. So really, remember this, that the H1B cannot, or essentially what you should think about this is, If you're an international student, you're coming to the US, your chance to be able to earn the opportunity to stay in the US, if you've gotten a great job offer, that cannot be snatched away from you. There is, again, legal precedent that almost prevents, or almost certainly prevents the administration from being able to do anything about the extensions, just because it's being done for so long that there's no legal basis to now actually come in and be able to make a legal or economic case to say this is bad. Very important thing to remember, the core H-1B program, the core extensions, these things will remain intact. In fact, they're out of the ambit of the power of the president by himself to alter these in any significant way. There's a lot more information in the guide. Parth will tell you more about it. Going forward, be sure to sign up with Bradley because we are actually monitoring any changes coming into this process. I hope that was valuable, and over to Parth.
There's one thing which I want to say: do not believe in everything you listen to. We have been frustrated with all the rumors and speculations which have been going on. On that note, Bradley is launching the first immigration guide as of now. If you haven't signed up or subscribed to MessengerBot, do it right now. You'll receive a immigration guide right directly into your Facebook Messenger. If you need any information regarding H1B, STEM extension, F1, OPT, CPT, it will be mentioned in the guide. It covers all the document formalities and information from government resources. Everything is properly cited. That means if you are reading anything out there regarding immigration, this is the one document which you should be reading. US universities need international students. They need that kind of cultural diversity. They need the money which is coming from the international students. In simple terms, there's a huge revenue generated from international students. In 2017 only, they made $35 billion from international students. It's not only about the money, it creates a cultural diversity. It brings in more amazing minds in the country. It brings in more research in the country, and well, it connects US citizens and US students to a wider world and gives them a wide horizon to learn from. You have to understand a very basic fact that coming to the US will not get you a job. Your hard work, patience and consistency will get you a job. As I mentioned before, there's a million international students in the US right now. Out of those million international students, even if one person doesn't get a job, that's 10,000 students not getting a job. Out of those 10,000, 2,000 students would be Indian, and out of those 2,000, even like 10 says that, oh, we can't get a job, it's so difficult. The whole Trump thing has created so many barricades for us to get a job. It just creates a ripple effect which keeps on going on, and media picks up, media feeds on that. This video in any way doesn't discourage or encourage anybody to come to the US. It's just a plain truth which I wanted to share from a long time. Share with your friends, check out Bradley, like the video, tag your friend who has been in a doubt of the whole immigration process. Thank you so much guys for watching, and until then I'll see you in the next one.